Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG and welcome to another Commander deck tech. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Hylda of the Icy Crown. It is 2 white and a blue for a 3/4 legendary creature human warlock. It has, whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, you may pay 1 generic. When you do, choose one of the following. Create a 4/4 white and blue elemental creature token, put a +1 counter on each creature you control, or scry 2, then draw a card. So, Hylda really cares about us tapping down our opponent's untapped creatures. This means we're really going to be leaning into that at every point in the video. Any effect that taps down an opponent's creature will be great in this deck, as every time we tap something down, we only have to pay 1 to get one of those really awesome abilities of Hylda. And the simple fact is that all those abilities are really good. A 4/4 token is a very real creature, and then once you build a board state, putting a counter on your whole team to grow them bigger will honestly just be fantastic. If you're then struggling for cards or hitting your land drops, you can then even scry 2 and draw a card for some really solid card selection. In terms of our game plan, it's going to be nice and easy. Get some ramp out early, play Hylda and then start tapping down our opponent's best creatures. All while we're doing this, we're generating a lovely board state. To win the game, we can tap down our opponent's blockers while pumping up our team so we can swing through for the win. And then we'll even have some cool combos if the aggro plan isn't coming together, which we can draw to with Hylda as well. A quick note before we jump into the video. In these deck techs, we will give you all the different sections and different cards in those sections that you need to pick to make the deck yourself. Any cards we mentioned will be down in the description below. While you're there, please consider liking and subscribing so we can keep bringing you more content like this. The first place to start is with some tap effects. This is really the core of the deck and it's everything that Hylda needs to get working. First up, we have some repeatable tapping effects. Possibly the best here is Tamiyo the Moon Sage, an awesome planeswalker that pluses 1 to tap down a permanent for 2 turns. And then it minuses 2 to draw a card for each tapped creature one of our opponents controls. This means not only does it fuel up Hylda, it also draws us a bunch of cards as well, which we all love. We then have Sunstrike Legionnaire, Court Street Denizen and Opposition, which can all tap down our opponent's creatures. But when combined with our commander, they can do some nutty things. As if we pay 1 generic when one of these taps down an opponent's creature, we can make that 4/4 blue-white elemental token, meaning that we can use all of these effects all over again. Basically, we can keep doing this until we run out of mana or targets. Do remember these cards when we get to our Wincon section. Next, we have some more repeatable ways of tapping down our opponent's creatures. Dreamshackle Geist, Citadel Siege, Timin, Youthful Geist, Debtor's Pulpit, and Frost Titan are all awesome. What these have in common is that they let us tap down a creature turn after turn, meaning that with our commander in play, they're just repeatable sources of value, which, as commander players, is something we all really want. We then have Retreat to Coralhelm. This lets us tap down a creature whenever we play a land, which effectively means we'll get to use it every turn. Next we have some one-time tap effects, but what's great about cards like Icy Blast, Blustersquall, Gadwick the Wizened, Cone of Cold, Sleep, Tempest Caller and Turnabout is that these have the possibility to tap down all of the creatures that some of our opponents control in one fell swoop, meaning we can pump any spare mana into Hylda to do some truly awesome things, like drawing a bunch of cards, making a load of creatures, or making our creatures a lethal threat. Then lastly we have Elvish Mariner. This is a really strong card with Hylda. With it in play, if we can tap something down, we pay 1 to scry 2 and draw a card. That will trigger the Mariner, allowing us to tap down 2 more creatures. This is a great little loop that keeps going until we either run out of mana or things to tap down. Next up is our card draw section, and we have some really synergistic options for us to look at. First up, we have Sharae of Numbing Depths. This draws us a card once a turn whenever we tap an opponent's creature. With all the effects we have, this is at least 1 bonus card a turn, but maybe more if we're tapping down creatures on our opponent's turns as well. Then we have Verity Circle, which draws us a card whenever any creatures our opponent controls becomes tapped if it's not attacking. So that's whenever we tap one of them down, or as well, it could just be if they activate an ability of a creature. Like for example, if an opponent taps a creature for mana, we get to draw a card, which is a really awesome effect. Then we have Borrowing 100,000 Arrows, Theft of Dreams, and Hylda's Crown of Winter. These all let us draw cards equal to the number of tapped creatures an opponent controls. Again, with all the effects that we have, on top of just generally creatures tapping in Magic for attacking and whatnot, these will draw us a bucket load of cards really easily. And then finally, we have Niveous Wisps, Enervate, Hithlain Knots, Plunge into Winter, and Pressure Point. Fantastic one-time effects of tapping down a creature and drawing a card. They might not look much on their own, but combine them with our commander, which effectively adds to each of them to either make a 4/4, put a counter on all of our creatures, or cast Preordain, actually makes them pretty good. Next up is our ramp section, and here we're looking for between 8 to 10 bits to give the deck the fuel it needs to get through a game. First up we have Wayfarer's Bauble, a great card in any non-green deck at ramping us by getting us a basic land and putting it into play. Next up, we have a plethora of really great mana rocks for us to choose from. You have things like Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, Talisman of Progress, Thought Vessel, Mind Stone, Felwar Stone, and Cold Steel Heart. They're all awesome cards that'll just do what the deck needs. We then have Midnight Clock, a solid 3 mana rock that after a couple of turns draws us 7 cards, which is always a nice little bonus. And then lastly, we have Kefnet's Monument. Depending on the creatures you choose from the ones we've suggested, getting a discount of 1 on each of them could be really solid. But the fact this can also tap down a creature whenever we cast a creature spell is just going to be great and works with what the deck is trying to do. Next up is our interaction section, and like with most decks, you want to start with at least 8 bits here and then go up from there the more competitive that your playgroup is. First up, we have just some of the best bits of interaction in all of Commander available to us in these colours. You have cards like Path to Exile, Rabid Hybridization, Swords to Plowshares, Reality Shift, Generous Gift, and Stroke of Midnight. Honestly, they're just the best, but there's so many options in these colours, run the ones that you like and suit your budget. We then have Sunblast Angel, a great 6 mana flying beater that when it comes in destroys all tapped creatures, a great answer to our opponent's boards. After that, we again have just some of the best board wipes going. You have cards like Supreme Verdict, Time Wipe, and Farewell. Absolutely fantastic answers to all the things that we need to deal with. Next up is a little bit of protection. Our commander is honestly just a great value engine, so we really want to keep it around and protect it. First up, because obviously, we have Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Still fantastic at protecting our commander from any targeted removal. We then have some super cheap counter magic with an Offer You Can't Refuse and Swan Song. Absolutely perfect at stopping that key kill spell or the very annoying board wipe. Okay, next up is our Wincon section, and we have a couple of really cool options that you can pick from. First up is Junk Winder. It'll be way cheaper to cast because of all the elementals that we'll be making, and then when it's in play, we just have to make 1 token to then tap a non-land permanent an opponent controls, meaning again we can tap as many things down as we have mana and targets. To get some more mana, we can use cards like Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar. These basically will just let us keep our opponent's creatures permanently tapped down, especially if you combine them with a card like Opposition, because things get a little bit nuts. What you need is Hylda in play, Opposition, and then one of these altars. We tap down an opponent's creature, which will trigger Hylda to make a 4/4 elemental. We tap the elemental to Opposition to tap down another creature. With that on the stack, we sack the tapped elemental to an altar to make more mana. We use that mana to pay for Hylda's ability, which makes another elemental, so we can do it all over again. There's honestly a ton of different ways you can get this type of combo working with many of the cards that we've already mentioned. It really is a fantastic way of stopping your opponents from ever doing anything. Next up, because we're basically a control deck, we have some awesome control finishers. The ones I like in this deck are ones that give us a bonus when they deal combat damage to a player. Because basically we can tap down our opponent's creatures whenever we want, we just know we're going to be able to get them through for that damage. This is why I love cards like Madomi the Ageless, Spawning Kraken, Sphinx Ambassador, Ancient Gold Dragon, and Ancient Silver Dragon. They're big, powerful hitters that we know we're going to get the bonus value out of. Another solid win condition in any control deck is Approach of the Second Sun. With the tapping slowing down our opponents, and the card draw baked into Hylda, we'll easily be able to cast this 2 times and win the game very quickly. Okay, rounding off the deck with some utility lands, and as with 2 colours we have some decent options that we can look at running. Firstly, I really like Forbidden Orchard in this deck. Fixing both of our colours, while also giving our opponents a 1/1 that we can then tap down, will actually be great. For lands that tap for blue, we have Mystic Sanctuary, so we can put a broken tap spell back on top of our library, and then you have Otawara, Soaring City, that can bounce something annoying back to our opponent's hands. For lands that generate white mana, we have Minas Tirith for some bonus card draw, and then Iganjo, Seat of the Empire, for some more nice removal. And then lastly, for colourless lands, I really like Arcane Lighthouse and Detection Tower, as they guarantee we can tap down any creature, even those ones with pesky hexproof. Right, thank you all very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It would greatly help me out. But anyway, until next time, I will see you all soon. Goodbye.